The 1897 British invasion of Benin and the looting of its artifacts. The 1897 British invasion of the Kingdom of Benin remains one of the most infamous acts of colonial plunder in African history. It led to the looting of thousands of priceless Benin bronzes and artifacts, many of which are now housed in European and American museums. This event not only marked the end of Benin's independence, but also resulted in the exile of its ruler, Oba Ovonramwen, and the near destruction of its cultural heritage. To understand the significance of this plunder, it is crucial to explore the history of Benin, the circumstances that led to its invasion, and the aftermath of British imperial aggression. The Kingdom of Benin before 1897. The Kingdom of Benin, located in present-day Edo State, Nigeria, was one of the most powerful and sophisticated African states for centuries. Founded around the 12th century, it developed a highly centralized government, a strong military, and an advanced system of arts and culture. The Oba of Benin ruled with absolute authority, supported by a network of chiefs and guilds responsible for administration, military affairs, and the kingdom's famous craftsmanship. Benin was particularly renowned for its bronze and brass sculptures, intricate plaques, and ivory carvings, which decorated the Oba's palace. These artifacts served not only as artistic expressions, but also as historical records, depicting the Oba, court officials, warriors, and key historical events. The kingdom engaged in trade with the Portuguese, Dutch, and later the British, exchanging goods such as ivory, palm oil, and pepper for firearms and luxury items. However, by the late 19th century, tensions between Benin and Britain escalated due to colonial ambitions. British interests and tensions with Benin. By the late 19th century, Britain had intensified its expansionist policies in West Africa as part of the scramble for Africa, a period when European powers sought to dominate the continent's territories and resources. Britain had already colonized Lagos in 1861, and by the 1890s, it was determined to extend its control over the lucrative trade routes in the Niger Delta region, particularly the palm oil trade, which was essential for the British industrial economy. The British viewed the Benin monarchy as an obstacle to their colonial ambitions because the Oba controlled trade and resisted direct British influence. The British merchants sought unrestricted access to the kingdom's resources, but were frustrated by Benin's policies, which included the regulation of trade and the requirement for permission to enter the kingdom. The situation escalated when British officials attempted to forcefully establish a trading relationship without the Oba's consent. The 1897 expedition. Justification for war. In 1896, British officials, led by Acting Consul General James Robert Phillips, planned a mission to Benin City, allegedly for peaceful negotiations. However, historical records suggest that Phillips had already written to the British government proposing the removal of Oba Ovonramwen and the annexation of the kingdom. His plan included installing a British-friendly administration that would open up trade routes for European merchants. Despite warnings that the Oba was engaged in important religious ceremonies and that visitors were not allowed, Phillips led a small delegation of about 250 men, including African porters and interpreters, into Benin territory in January 1897. As they approached Benin City, they were ambushed by Benin warriors. Most of the British force was killed, including Phillips himself. Only a few members of the expedition survived. The British government seized upon this incident as justification for a full-scale military invasion, branding it the Benin Massacre. In reality, it was used as a pretext to launch a punitive expedition designed not just to avenge Philip's death, but to conquer and loot the kingdom. The British Punitive Expedition of 1897. In February 1897, a well-organized British military force of 1,200 soldiers, led by Rear Admiral Sir Harry Rawson, was dispatched to Benin. The force was equipped with modern weapons, including machine guns, rifles, and artillery, far superior to the swords, spears, and outdated firearms possessed by Benin Kingdom warriors. The invasion was swift and brutal. After overcoming initial resistance from Benin defenders, the British forces entered Benin City on February 18, 1897. Once inside, they unleashed widespread destruction, setting fire to the royal palace and many other buildings. Hundreds of Benin residents were killed, and the once thriving city was reduced to ruins. The looting of the Benin Bronzes and artifacts. The most devastating consequence of the invasion was the large-scale looting of Benin's treasures. British soldiers plundered thousands of objects from the Oba's palace and sacred sites, including Number 1. Benin Bronzes. Brass plaques depicting Obas, warriors, court life, and deities, originally used to decorate the palace walls. Number 2. Ivory sculptures. Carved elephant tusks and figurines used in religious and royal ceremonies. Number 3. Royal regalia. Crowns, coral beads, ceremonial swords, and staffs of authority. Number 4. Ancestral shrines. Sacred objects and altars dedicated to past Obas and ancestors. It is estimated that over 4,000 artifacts were taken, many of which were later sold at auctions to museums and private collectors. These artifacts made their way to institutions such as Number 1. The British Museum in London, United Kingdom, which houses over 900 pieces. Number 2. The Pitt Rivers Museum, Oxford, United Kingdom. Number 3. The Ethnological Museum in Berlin, Germany. Number 4. The Quai Branly Museum in Paris, France. Number 5. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, United States. The exile of Oba Ovonramwen. Following the destruction of his kingdom, Oba Ovonramwen was captured and exiled to Calabar in 1897, where he remained until his death in 1914. With Benin's monarchy dismantled, the British formally incorporated the region into their colonial administration, marking the end of Benin's independence. The looting of Benin's cultural heritage remains one of the greatest acts of colonial plunder. The stolen artifacts became highly valued in the West, inspiring European modernist artists, including Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse, who were fascinated by African art. Meanwhile, Nigeria and the descendants of Benin's royal family have fought for decades to recover these treasures. In recent years, some progress has been made towards repatriation. Number 1. In 2021, Germany announced plans to return over 1,100 Benin Bronzes. Number 2. In 2022, the University of Cambridge and the Smithsonian Institution returned some pieces. Number 3. Despite these efforts, major institutions, such as the British Museum, continue to resist permanent restitution. The 1897 British invasion of Benin was not just a military conquest, but a deliberate act of cultural destruction and theft. The Benin Kingdom bronzes and other looted artifacts remain powerful symbols of colonial violence and injustice. Today, the fight for their return continues, with growing international pressure on museums to acknowledge the historical wrongs of imperialism. The Nigerian government is working on creating the Edo Museum of West African Art in Benin City, where returned artifacts will be preserved and celebrated as part of Nigeria's rich heritage. Now, here is a striking question. Why does the British Museum continue to resist permanent restitution of the Benin bronzes and artifacts? Watch these reports.
The British Museum, one of the world's most renowned cultural institutions, holds a vast collection of historical artifacts that span continents and millennia. Founded in 1753, it has long been a symbol of knowledge and preservation, housing treasures from ancient civilizations, including Egyptian mummies, the Rosetta Stone, and the Parthenon marbles. Among its most contested holdings are the Benin Bronzes, magnificent brass and bronze sculptures looted by British forces from the Kingdom of Benin, modern-day Nigeria, in 1897. The museum continues to resist the permanent restitution of the Benin Bronzes and other artifacts, citing its commitment to global accessibility, conservation expertise, and the legal restrictions imposed by the British Museum Act of 1963. It argues that these artifacts form part of a shared human history, best housed in an institution that attracts millions of visitors annually. The British Museum is very adamant and maintains that it operates within legal constraints, and that its approach ensures that these masterpieces remain accessible to a diverse international audience. The museum has proposed alternative solutions, such as loans and collaborations with Nigerian institutions, rather than full repatriation. Additionally, it emphasizes the importance of maintaining historical objects in environments with optimal preservation conditions. Critics argue that retaining these bronzes in London upholds colonial legacies and denies rightful ownership to the Edo people of Nigeria. Now let us ask some questions. Why was the British Museum Act of 1963 enacted? Many experts and the wider public believe that it was created to shield Britain from its colonial wrongs perpetrated on a nuclear scale. The argument that these artifacts form part of a shared human history and are best housed in an institution that attracts millions of visitors annually does not hold water, according to many experts. Now, if you locate a good thing in a jungle, people will travel to that jungle to go and see that historical artifact. Haven't you seen people traveling to Nepal to see the highest peak in the world? Nigeria is no different. Don't you think that they should be hosted in Nigeria so that people can travel to Nigeria to see these artifacts? If Britain truly wants to help a poor country like Nigeria, as described by people like Kami Bednock, don't you think they should make restitution and return these artifacts to boost the ailing Nigerian tourism industry? Many argue that this was no part of shared common history, but rather an aggression on peaceful Africans by Europeans who were scrambling for Africa's resources. Now, the colonial plunder and injustice, as described by many, were on a nuclear scale.
Watch these reports.
What do you do when you make a mistake? You apologize, that's the first thing. But what if that mistake killed millions of people, impoverished millions more, plundered entire continents, and left generations with trauma? I don't think an apology cuts it then. And that's what former colonies are saying to European countries. A sorry is not enough. You need to pay up. And leading that charge is Barbados. Their Prime Minister is in the UK right now. Her name is Mia Mottley. And I must say, she's done her homework. She did not just make an appeal for reparations, she came with an exact figure, $4.9 trillion. That's how much she wants European countries to pay Barbados, $4.9 trillion. Most of it is for slavery.
Now, the figure stated may be a point of debate, but it does not take away the fact that wrongs on an industrial nuclear scale were committed by the colonial superpowers like Britain, France, Spain, and Germany. Is that all? Watch another report.
A lot has been written and said about the British rule in India. If you read their version of history, you would think that the British Raj was the best thing that could have ever happened to India. But the fact is that the British looted India. A greedy and racist British Raj financed its industrial revolution by robbing India, and now there is more data to prove it. A study by Indian scholars reveals stunning numbers. The British looted as much as $45 trillion. Let that number sink in. 45 trillion dollars between 1765 and 1938.
Now, can you see that there is a huge outcry from countries where the colonial masters have stepped their foot? The looted Benin Bronzes are the tip of the iceberg. From India to Nigeria to Jamaica to Barbados to Ghana, there is wailing and severe outcry. People are saying, "Please, Britain, make restitutions. You need to make reparations. You need to return the stolen and looted artifacts." Nigeria is just a tiny number out of hundreds, if not thousands, calling for Britain to correct its past.